Is it going? Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the last session today. First, I would like to thank all the organizers. I'd like to thank Hannah and Maya for their wonderful work and for having us all together today through this wonderful event. And thank you all for coming and sticking with it and staying the last session, which is going to be our showcasing our team. And my name is Gada Solomon. I'm professor of nutrition in the School of Public Health here at CUNY. And I'm also the director of the doctoral program in environmental and planetary health sciences. And I would like to introduce our moderator today for this session, Dr. Karmen Williams, my colleague. She's assistant professor in the Department of Health Policy and Management. And she got her PhD in leadership, public health leadership. She also has a couple of masters. She has an MBA. She has a Master of Science in Public Health from Meharry Medical School, and she has also a Master in Art in Sociology. So it is my great pleasure to introduce her today as the moderator for this session. Karmen and I are both Career Success Fellows in year 2023. And that's a fellowship that we got through CUNY, where we engage and try to engage faculty, students, community, the career services, and being part of today was our one of our achievements as well. And if you haven't met Dr. Williams, you will have the opportunity today to see how the wonderful work she does and introducing all our panelists. So with that, I'll give it to Dr. Williams and I will hand the mic.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gada. And thank you all again for joining. I'm so honored to be on this panel talking about interdisciplinary work in public health. As you heard, all of that was by accident, no, but my inability to decide what I wanted to do. But I'm very happy to be on this panel. I'm very honored that we were able to put this together. And thank you, Hannah and Maya, for your work with this wonderful event. Thank you, panelists, for joining us today. And so I'll do our quick introductions. And we have Dr. Justine Witzke, is the founder of the CEO of a lineage, a boutique sperm bank and fertility consultancy in New York City, providing high quality, equitable, accessible, and andrology services, donor testing and screening, fertility guidance, and industry-specific consulting. Additionally, she is the co-founder and president of CP Extension. It's a nonprofit organization aimed at supporting families of individuals with cerebral palsy. And we have Javeria Shahab, has a demonstrated history of working in healthcare communications industry for over 20 years and currently serves as president of medical education at 21 Grams, the promotional medical education agency of Real Chemistry. In this role, Javeria oversees the agency's promotional and medical communications activities. Thank you, welcome. We have Rebecca Bachman, has a background in landscape architecture and global health based primarily in underserved communities in Latin America, including Brazil and Peru. Her recent work has included research design and teaching in the Peruvian Amazon rainforest to examine the built environment as a determinant of human, social, and environmental health. As a PhD student in community health and health policy here at CUNY SPH, Rebecca is focused on urban design and public health intersects. So thank you all so much for being with us here today. And we'll just jump right in. So tell us about your work. We heard the wonderful introductions that you all the amazing things you're doing. And so how does that connect to public health? And additionally, what inspires you to pursue this work?
Should I start?
Sure, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. And thank you for the very kind and elaborate introductions. So I am a specialist in fertility at this point, and I have spent my entire career working in fertility, but I got into it completely by accident. I was a new grad from college. I was doing a master's in public health at the predecessor to this program, the Hunter College MPH program, with a focus in community health education. I was working at a large academic medical center here in New York in IVF in a patient education type of role. And ultimately ended up building a 15, 16-year long career so far in that specialty. And we were talking about it on the prior panel, how the approach of community health education is applicable in delivering healthcare, how it's applicable in communicating healthcare, right? And I think that's kind of the concept of what we're talking about here, is that this all overlaps. So despite the fact that I'm, ultra focused in the fertility space, we think about how do we communicate this information, and how does that then allow improved access to care because someone learns about a procedure that they may not have known about before, or they realize that it might be feasible for them in their own lives. And so we've really tried to kind of keep that tether of access to care always in the back of my mind, even with the CP extension work. That's really the concept of the work for me. So I guess I'll leave it there, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. I didn't want to go after you because that was a good answer. I'm just kidding. So similar to Justine, I think my path to public health and how to integrate that into my day-to-day work as well has been kind of focusing on the access portion of it. So I work in medical advertising and communications. So we work with pharmaceutical companies or nonprofits or whatever to basically increase disease awareness, access, what are patient stories. So a lot of what we do is working with our client partners in order to do FDA submissions or make sure that the messages that are going to resonate the most with HCPs are at the forefront. We do a lot of stuff that's based in data and analytics, and how can we use humans and ideas coupled with AI and machine learning. So many different aspects, and ultimately leading to taking healthcare from what it is today to what it should be and what our experience should look like. So even though we have fertility, medical advertising, landscape and design, all this stuff similar to what Justine was saying, there's so many different facets of public health and how they all intersect together. And we've had some fun and lively conversations, even just preparing for this panel and how it all comes together. So hopefully we're going to do some stuff afterwards.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes. Hi, thanks. I just want to start by saying that I've been so inspired by the people who I have heard speak today, your experiences, your stories, both on panels and attendees. So I would love to see all of you also in this seat, but I will share my perspective. So I did this upstairs. I'm going to do it again. Bear with me. Who has heard of landscape architecture in this room? A few people? Okay, amazing. Yeah, I'm actually pleasantly surprised. I have a background in landscape architecture, which the short definition of that is everything but the building. So in the urban environment, it is a lot of things that I came to learn are social determinants of health. So urban environment interventions that landscape architects are trained to design are affecting urban heat, they're affecting water quality, air quality, quality of life, mental health and well-being, so many layers that are social determinants. When I was in my master's, I started working with a group that I was really inspired by, who were very interdisciplinary. Many of them were in global health. And that's where I started to learn about this terminology that applies, social determinants, all of these things in public health that apply perfectly, that parallel with landscape architecture. And so I became both of those things and pursued both of those backgrounds. And I was very lucky to work for several years on research projects where we were implementing interventions that are built environment interventions and attempting to measure the impact on various human and ecological health outcomes. I could just ramble on and on. I'm just gonna let you get to the next question, but that's me. Hi.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's great to hear more about you all's work. When we think about public health, and a lot of you probably heard today, we talked about advocacy, we talked about a lot of things for public health. And in some ways, we are, I think the term is like the fun police. We have to do things like make people use car seats and things like that, stop smoking, things like that. So in what ways, but I like to think of it more as barrier breaking and barrier breakers. And so in what ways would you describe your work as breaking barriers or barrier breakers? And if you do describe it in that way, for whom and in what way?
All right, I guess I get to start again. So fertility, I think, kind of inherently lends itself to this because the whole specialty of IVF, of reproductive medicine as a type of medicine, the oldest person ever born from IVF, it was born in 1978. So it's 45, 46 years ago. It's all pretty new in the grand scheme of things. And if we look back at my 16 years working in the IVF space, what we're able to offer a patient now is completely different than what we were able to offer them 16 years ago. And sometimes it's completely different than what we were able to offer them 16 months ago. So the technology is constantly advancing. But I think when I think about it, and forgive me that this sounds like a canned speech from a public health person, but what a family looks like is entirely different than when I started working in this field as well. And I think the utilization of these technologies to help people build the family that they want, in whatever form that is within the regulations, that's ethically appropriate, that's clinically feasible, right? All these things that you're kind of getting to, that's exactly what we do. And often the regulatory landscape is not super easy, and the patient actually has to be involved in that. And what I usually tell the patients is like, this might be 50 steps, but if you'll take the 50 steps with us, we'll do it with you. And I think that's really the approach, and that has its kind of underlying tenets in the work, the public health work and the community health education, and kind of being the guide and the coach almost to the patient through the process.
I think so. I thought about this question a lot beforehand, and I think my work is mostly groundbreaking for landscape architects for that profession, because a problem that I've encountered is that in landscape architecture, we talk about public health all the time, but in public health, most people haven't heard of landscape architecture. The profession is underappreciated, in my opinion. It has a lot to give. It's underfunded, all of these things. I had an opportunity early in my landscape architecture and global health studies to do a fellowship through the Landscape Architecture Foundation, where they fund student, professor, and professional research projects that are measuring the impact of landscape interventions. And they have 3 kind of broad categories of types of impact that a landscape can have, which are environmental, social, and economic. And so I applied with one of my mentors, and we did a project, and we found that, and my mentor was a public health professor. We were a really weird team for this. And she encouraged me to look at all of these social impacts and these upstream determinant impacts. And we wound up having basically only social bucket outcomes. And it was really this eye-opening moment for me where I was like, we really are lacking the methodology to measure and communicate the potential for landscape interventions to affect public health outcomes. And so that really inspired me to keep growing and asking questions at that intersection. So thank you.
It's awesome. Karmen, I think you talked about like barrier breaking, and I feel like, you know, in some of the breakouts that we had before, typically when you think of public health, you think of nonprofit, you think of grassroots, you think of pharma as the devil or the bad guy in the room, or, you know, it's like a little bit icky. You're like, ooh, I don't know, is that good or a bad job or whatever. But once you actually get into the world of medical communications or advertising and things like that, I was saying this in the panel before, that it's one of the most highly regulated industries that there is on the globe, right? So whether it's the FDA or different regulation like OIG, all these different things. So in that world that is pretty restrictive, the kinds of barriers that you can break is pretty wild, right? So, you know, I've had the opportunity in my career to work on some of the first immunotherapies for oncology, you know, vastly increasing overall survival and giving people more time and memories with their families. That's some pretty darn amazing stuff right there, right? You know, got to work. Oh, thank you. I love that. Got to work on, you know, the first cannabinoids for children, infantile epilepsy, which what a huge, you know, huge change in mindset that was of using cannabinoids in the healthcare setting, you know, working with technologies like CRISPR technology, which is gene editing, and the potential to actually cure rare diseases, you know, like sickle cell, which, you know, unfortunately vastly affects African American populations and things like that, working on different compassionate use trials, making sure that patients have access to this stuff. So from a public health perspective, you guys have endless opportunities to break as many barriers as you're willing to put the time and the effort and the energy into. So it's such a versatile degree that you can use in so many different ways, as you see from the amazing ladies that are up here as well. But it's all about how you apply it and the perspective that you have as you're applying it stuff.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And Javeria, I'm coming right back to you. Even thinking about some of the things you just said. So what are the practicalities and challenges of your work, and specifically in this area?
The practicalities are a 24-hour day. No, wish there was a couple more hours. But I mean, I was talking about how the pharma industry is truly very, very, very regulated. So it's very much about making sure that everything that we do is scientifically rigorous, making sure that it's, you know, it's steeped in the data, it's steeped in making sure that it's factual based, you know, it's peer reviewed. There's lots of different like, you know, proofs of evidence, like basically everything needs to make sure that it's got double, triple, quadruple, you know, evidence built proofs in place. So what you can say from a communications perspective, it has to meet a certain burden of fact. So I would say that that's, you know, people think that advertising, you can go off and say whatever you want to, that marketing, you can, you know, say whatever message resonates with people. But no, actually, every single thing that we do has to go through regulatory compliance. It goes through many, many rounds of legal reviews and things like that. So there's lots of barriers, but once you actually do achieve something, it's pretty darn amazing.
That's great. And Rebecca, and if you all want to answer.
Remind me of
I'll
the
go
question,
ahead.
please.
What are some of the practicalities and challenges of your work in the public health space?
Oh, so for us, I mean, we're so lucky to do this type of work in New York. New York has a tremendous wealth of fertility knowledge, of access to care, so much better than so many other parts of the country, the world, as evidenced in the news in the last couple of months, especially. So there are, you know, there are fewer barriers, I guess, here, but there are still tremendous barriers. This is a type of medicine that is incredibly resource intensive. It's time consuming. It's financially challenging for a lot of people. There's a whole insurance world to navigate if there's any participation by them. And it's emotionally really, really taxing. This is also a part of people's lives that they often aren't so keen on sharing with other people. Maybe their community, their parents, their religious leaders have opinions on how they build their family. And that's something that
we take, again, sounds like I, wrote this out of a book, but like it really is a privilege that people let us into this part of their lives. And what that means is that we get to help them break through some kind of barrier for themselves. And maybe it means we're modifying the treatment plan, or we're, adjusting things. Maybe we're making one embryo at a time versus fertilizing all of their eggs from a particular cycle so that it can be aligned with their, social requirements, but also try to build their family. The examples can go on forever. So I think, being willing to really consider where everybody's coming from. And that's kind of one of these underlying tenets of public health, is that like, we're all who we are because of our life experience and the environment, and, all of these things genuinely are tied together. So.
I mean, I'll just add a little bit to that. I love what you said about the importance of understanding the diverse array of circumstances and backgrounds. And I think one of the challenges in my work as well, and one of the strengths of my field, is that it really focuses on participatory engagement and there's a big toolbox of ways that we can engage community members in design and in research that we should really expand. And it's often, there's often a challenge that there's not enough time, there's not enough funding, there's not enough any kind of resource to really do that thoroughly and do that justice. But the tools exist, and we're in a time where we can start to be exploring them more. Yeah.
Thank you. And just as an encouragement, and from what they're saying, is like, nobody said it was going to be easy, but we could do it. Keep going, keep pushing forward, use those tools. This is specifically for Justine, but we can definitely have the other panelists speak as well. But how can we rethink public health training to encourage interdisciplinary and solutions-driven research? And I was in the session where you were just a panelist, and thinking about specifically maybe in a potentially uncommon, unknown, new area, like how can we encourage this?
So I think this is a really, really important thing. And I'll try to tell this story quickly. But when I was applying for colleges, like 17 years old, I get interviewed by some alumni for a particular college. And he says, "Why do you want to be a science major? Your scores in history and psychology and these other things are better." And I just was like, I'm going to go to medical school, right? And I was 17. And flash forward, I went to college. I have a degree in zoology. That's obviously how you get here today. And then I was lucky enough to be in New York as a new grad, working in fertility and doing this public health degree. And it made sense. It came naturally almost to me of how you would convey these messages, how you would be able to kind of convince people to do what's in their own best interest, right? And it hit me one day in class, like, this is what he was talking about. It isn't that this is inherently easier, it's that I'm good at it, right? And I have taken that with me over the last 15 years in my own life of doing the work that I care deeply about, because that's a sign of, the things you're good at, you often like to do, I find. And I think as a manager, as a leader, as a founder now, it's something that I think is incredibly important, that we put people in the roles that they are meant to be doing and that they're best equipped to be doing. And I often ask people, I said this on the earlier panel, but like I ask people what they liked about their prior job and what they didn't like about it, because I think those are the things that really they're best at. And that's where the company, the patient, the outcome is going to be best if people are doing what they are meant to be doing. So as we think about, an interdisciplinary world, I think that underlying concept allows us all to be able to work together, right? I'm not meant to be a landscape architect or a medical communications expert, but you're probably not meant to be fertility people, right? So.
But you actually do medical communications.
We don't write it down.
Not sponsored by any pharma company.
Okay, great. And this is for Rebecca specifically, but again, other panelists can answer. And so what are your recommendations for bridging the gap, and specifically within your field, like I said, being maybe a little unpopular and uncommon, and public health? And so why is collaboration so such a necessity and important?
Interdisciplinary collaboration is the most important thing we can possibly be doing. And I'm sorry if I gave you the impression that landscape architecture isn't popular. It's very popular among landscape architects. It's a big profession. It's just, it confuses me that there's not more interdisciplinary collaboration across public health and landscape architecture. For me, it's extremely important to reach out to people with expertise in fields that I know are important, that I have a little bit of baseline knowledge about, but don't have the expertise to be that person on the team, and to build these relationships and build these communities and teams where we can do interdisciplinary work that spans, you know, the arts, health, collaboration, community participation, ecology, all of the things. They can all be happening in one team. Learning the languages of different fields has been extremely important for me. Reading the literature from various different backgrounds and just seeing how people use the same words with different meanings across them. There's never enough time in the world to be immersing in interdisciplinary language and expanding the ability to use it and weld it in a useful way. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. No, okay. Wonderful. And so I guess even continuing in the conversation about public health training. And so how does your public health training prepare you for this career that you're in? And what are some of those transferable skills that you've been able to hone?
So my path to getting to where I am today was not a straight linear path. And some of the folks that were in the program, Isabella, I'm looking at you, that were in the last session and stuff had a lot of the same kinds of questions, right? Like, the world is your oyster. There's so many things you can do. How do you hone in on the thing that you want to do and that you'll enjoy doing and that you're going to jump up out of bed and be excited to do and not be miserable and wake up when you're 65 and be like, shit, what the hell did I do? You just got to be curious, right? You just got to find, like, you get one job. If that's not the thing that you like Justine was saying, you then hone in on the pieces of the job that you did enjoy. For me, that meant working in nonprofit at first, which was amazing. And there's like lots of really amazing and like phenomenally idealistic people. It was phenomenal. However, I didn't feel like I was actually truly, for me personally, I didn't feel like I was really moving the needle. Then I went into clinical research and did some work at Sloan Kettering. Then I was a health educator at Lehman College. Then I realized that wasn't it for me either. And throughout all of those jobs, the thing that I liked the most was actually interacting with people and talking to them in a way that, resonated, where I could be empathetic, where I could kind of echo the things that they were telling me back and stuff. And so I actually didn't come upon medical communications on purpose. I actually went to a job fair at NYU, which is where I got my public health degree, and kind of fell into it by mistake. I did an internship, and then 20 years later, here I am, and found something that every single day I wake up, it's a different kind of day. I'm working on none less than like 20 different therapy areas with all different kinds of clients, with all different kinds of products. There's always something to learn and immerse in. It's always, you know what I mean? I got to travel the entire world, work the emerging markets for Pfizer. So you're traveling to like Latin America and Africa, Middle East and Asia, and doing all, having all different kinds of perspectives. And that all that came from having a versatile degree like public health, and just being able to communicate, just being able to like tell stories that are relatable, that are memorable, that aren't forgettable. And so you really can kind of like fit it into any facet of any job, which is the coolest thing about a public health degree. And I also didn't go to medical school, which probably disappointed my parents, but I think I found something better.
I think I completely share this experience. My first job was as like a patient educator, and then I got to formalize a fertility preservation program. Then I got to be head of clinical operations at a really large department in a really well-respected academic medical center. And I did this MPH and I did a PhD in clinical and translational research. And I said, I have this zoology degree. So on paper, this is like totally chaotic, right? But there is a through line to it. And I think it is now, and I recognize this, I did not always see it as such a privilege that the public health experience could be so applicable to so many things. Sometimes it might have been nice to be a doctor and you're like automatically qualified to do this thing, right? There is an element that you have to continue proving yourself, continue showing your work, sort of, for lack of a better term, in doing this. But it does translate, I think, to all of the types of work that we're doing. I think all of the things that we've heard about all day, you can go so many different directions. That doesn't necessarily mean that always feels easy. So I guess that's my commentary on it.
This question doesn't apply to me very well because I'm a first year PhD student in the Community Health and Health Policy program here at the CUNY SPH, and I'm receiving a lot of formal training in public health right now. I did study global health in my master's, and concurrently with landscape architecture, that really trained me to look at systems and to think about systems in these really layered ways. That is a transferable skill, I think, to any kind of profession. But when it comes to being able to like transfer skills in biostatistics, I don't have those yet. Talk to me in a couple of years.
That's great. And thinking about even in some of the things you all have already said, in public health, we're getting to the point where we're more collaborative, we're more working with other areas. And so this question is the last question. So if you have questions, please get them ready for our question and answer portion. But how could we continue to advance interdisciplinary collaboration and thinking about growing the network of public health?
Hey, can I get your phone number? I think it's honestly, Karmen, I think it's just that. I think it's coming and being able to attend sessions like this where you have like-minded people who are cut from the same cloth that want to be able to collaborate. There's, I feel like all of us are constantly trying to think of a way where I think, one of my colleagues that's here today was talking about this before of like, how do we not rinse and repeat, right? How do I do something with you that's going to be completely different and that might still be relatable to products and pharma and marketing and, obviously with women's health and access to fertility care and stuff like that as well, is like just being able to network, and I think later in my career and stuff as well, it wasn't, I know we were talking in the last session about like LinkedIn and how do you find the right positions and how do you market yourself in the right way and how do you make sure you have the right resume and stuff. All that stuff is great. That'll get you your first couple of jobs. After that, it's all about who you know, how you talk to them, how you ask them for a help, how you follow up, how you show up. It's all about this right here. So when you're done, don't just get your bag and leave. Stay around, talk to people, come up and talk to us. Ask us questions, give me your resume, give me your phone number, we'll get in contact. And it's truly about that. The collaboration just comes down to just normal human interpersonal interaction with people, I would say.
I completely agree with that. people, I said this in the earlier session, but people really like to give their opinion of things. So it's often I will go into something if I'm like cold calling or, you know, kind of probably cold emailing these days, like just, I have this project, I'd love to get your impression of it. You're not asking really for anything, right? Other than somebody to react in the moment. They don't have to do any homework. They don't have to, the lift is not large for them. I would say though, it's a kind of to the point of this whole thing is that acknowledging that we need interdisciplinary work is really where it comes down to this. Like, why on earth would I try to figure out like the layout of the facility when there are people who know how to lay things out, right? Why would I write, you know, the marketing materials when there are people who know how to do that, and we're all going to be better utilized doing those things. So I think it's really a matter of that. I mean, and it's also people being interested in working with people who aren't exactly like them. And I think this goes back to a more philosophical thing of like why I like New York City is that we're all people who are not necessarily of the same background, of the same life experience, but we've chosen to be amongst each other. And that applies professionally as well, that, you know, you want to learn from other people, you want to think about what they're doing and see how it actually connects to the work that you're doing. And I'll just throw out there, there's this book called Collaborate or Perish that is like the best book ever if you're trying to convince your team that they need to do interdisciplinary work. So
Submit Justine for 10% off.
I mean, I agree with everything that both of you have said. Networking is crucial. Reaching out to people, just emailing people, informational interviews, getting to know people who do things that you would like to be able to collaborate with, and making that happen in any possible way. Interdisciplinary education is something that I'm really passionate about. I have had an amazing opportunity to get to teach a class over the last several years that pulls together built environment design students, ecology and forestry and environmental science students, and public health students, and pursuing opportunities like that. I became an instructor of that course after taking that course. And I'm so grateful that it existed, and I would love to see more of that happening. Just courses that are not only focused in content on interdisciplinary topics, but pulling in students who are in a lot of different disciplines who might never get to work on a problem together. Because those are also relationships that they'll be able to walk out of there with. So making more of that sort of thing normal and popular. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And if we could just give our panelists a hand. And we'll open the floor to a few questions. Thank you, Anne.
Great. Thank you all so much. We have many questions for you in these next 15 or so minutes. I'll start with one from somebody in the room who would like to know more about what you're most excited for in the future of public health.
I'm really excited for the built environment becoming more and more popular in public health, and for climate change and design justice becoming part of public health. Very excited to be able to be here while those fields are expanding.
I'm most excited about public health becoming more and more accessible and more known. The fact that we all went through a global pandemic is a testament to the, you know, public health is in every day. It affects all of us on the daily, and is, you know, has huge effects on economies and policy and peoples and experiences and all the things. So just it becoming more and more a part of our everyday awareness in the way that we approach the world.
I should have taken the mic first. That was my answer. No, I think that access piece is so important. And I think it's that idea that people are thinking about public health, but it also is that we can use the public health spirit to engage people in accessing care for themselves and for their families.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I will add just to everything that you all are saying about the opportunities that are available for people in public health. I mean, we have multiple opportunities now working with different sectors and different, things, even the private sector. And so recognizing, so I'm excited about that. You can be from any discipline and really work in public health. Hannah, next.
Great, thank you. We have gotten a few questions multiple times in different ways, so I'm going to start to distill them. Some have asked about challenges you faced. One person phrased it as to ask you to describe a time in your career that you experienced a failure and how you learned from that experience. But in general, we've seen several questions come through on Zoom and here about challenges and failure, something we all certainly empathize with and can relate to. So if either challenges or failure, if you'd like to respond to that, I think that would be of interest.
I've been trying to work as a researcher and a designer and an educator in academia. And I think a few years ago, there was a string of grants that just none of them came through. And I was like, I will never be paid to do anything ever again. I need to sell out and get a regular client serving job in a design firm that I'm going to hate. I mean, I have been extremely privileged to be able to just not have to do that yet. It's always a backup plan that as a person with a professional degree, I can always fall back on that. But I think pursuing a weird path is there's going to be more failure than not. And so continuing to come up with new ways to apply for funding to do the work that we're really passionate about while making it work somehow is something that I continually learn from. Yeah.
I would just like to say that even the for-profit world has money problems and resource restrictions. I can say from firsthand experience that typically every single client that you have wants you to do more with less. And that is a constant struggle. So no matter if it's profit, not profit, grassroots, like whatever the case may be, it's always trying to find the most efficient and resource least intensive way of doing the thing. So that is a constant, money is always a constant struggle of how to support the things that people truly believe in.
This is like a perfect example of people doing the thing they're meant to be doing, right? I would say, if I take the entrepreneurial position on this, the challenges are such that you have all of the subject matter challenges that you kind of know and you go into it with, and then you have global economic challenges, and you have things that are totally outside of your typical purview and your typical experience that then are also your responsibility. And it is, it really is that entrepreneurial roller coaster of the high highs and the low lows and the quick change between them. And that, while that doesn't necessarily sound like a public health answer, I think because all of these things, I think we've proven, are parts of public health, it is.
Okay, great. Thank you. We've gotten a lot of questions that are looking for practical advice. Phrases, themes are kind of, to the people looking to leverage their degree or take proactive steps. I think a lot of career mapping is happening today. So that is the question. How would you, for people with public health degrees, move ahead if you were students now to leverage this degree successfully for career prosperity and take those proactive steps?
my co-panelist earlier said this, but I'll share it with the whole group, that as a new grad or as a young person or, as someone in a career transition, you have a unique opportunity that people will take your call and just reach out to them. And I gave my example of how I ask the question of just trying to get people's opinions, but if you kind of make the lift a little light for the person you're asking something of, maybe that's because you did some background research, or maybe that's because you're not asking them for anything in particular other than advice or guidance or something like that. I would say I wish I had been more proactive in reaching out to people earlier in my career. I now have come all the way around, and I will contact anyone in the world, and I will just say my piece and see how it resonates. And what's the worst thing that happens? They don't reply to your email, right? Like, that's literally the worst thing that happens. So there's really no risk. I would say that's my piece of advice for like a transition phase in career. Sorry about all the weird mic stuff I'm doing.
I love this. It's cool. Yeah. Let's do karaoke later. I agree. Be proactive, be bold. But I would say, as somebody who probably has at least a dozen people interview with me on a weekly basis, come prepared. Just be resourceful. Make sure you've done your research. Make sure you've looked at their website. Make sure you've maybe interviewed somebody else who works there. Make sure you resonate a lot of the language that's in the job posting or the job description. If somebody comes to an interview and comes unprepared, didn't tailor their resume, didn't tailor what they were going to talk about, I got no time for it. So just be resourceful, be prepared, and come as if bring your A game, basically.
I agree with both of you completely. Also, as a current student, I have the same questions. I don't know if I have anything to add, honestly.
And I just want to quickly add, I think one thing that I think now would have been helpful for me is definitely investing time in yourself. I think someone mentioned earlier about what values do you have? And that's going to be, we even did in one of the sessions, like we marked the things that we found valuable that we want to see in a job position. And so doing those types of things to prepare is really, that would have been really helpful for me. As you see, I was all over the place. And I think it would have kind of helped narrow down exactly where I want to be, spend a little less time all over the place. And so investing time in yourself and building or figuring out what it is you actually want to do while you're exploring and doing those informational interviews and things like that.
Great, thank you all. I think we have time for one more question and then any final remarks you'd like to make. This reflects, I think, a question also asked in the morning Q&A. I love the phrasing. It sounds like marketing we would do from my office. What's beyond the resume? What drives you to do the wonderful work you do on an intrinsic level?
For you, it's babies.
I really like people. That's really what it is. Like, I really genuinely like people. I genuinely feel like it's a privilege every time someone allows us into this like really vulnerable part of their lives. And that's the underlying tenet. And no matter what I do, what my job has been, I have made sure, even if it wasn't, even if it was extra, kind of to the point of like being a little extra with all of this stuff, of staying connected to the patients, meeting with patients, really having a sense of what that experience is like so that we can make operational and business and programmatic changes that are appropriate for what's really going on. So for me, it's the people. And I know that sounds a little corny, but it's the real answer.
It's hard to answer this question. I am really passionate about what I do because I'm really passionate about what I do. Yes, I love people. I love thinking about really complex problems. I had a professor in undergrad once in a Black Studies class who was like, there's a point where you know too much to just have a normal, like to just coast. Like you just get like bit with a passion to keep doing stuff because like what else are you going to do with your life? And I still relate to that. That was how long ago? 20 years ago. Yeah. That's all I'll say.
I love that. What you do is great. I would say for me, so I joined the company that I'm at, 21 Grams, about probably almost a year ago now. And when I joined, to me, the name 21 Grams is what resonated the most. I actually asked this in the breakout, but does anybody here know what 21 Grams relates to? What kind of scientific folklore it is? Is the late? Oh, there she is. She knew before too. I love it. Do you want to say it? Spot on, spot on. Yeah. So the 21 grams. So basically, the turn of the century, he weighed bodies pre and post mortem, and 21 grams was the average difference, which is what they then attributed to the soul or the spirit. And so my company, whenever they're approaching an advertisement or an educational program or some patient advocacy thing or whatever, they're always thinking about that 21 grams. What is that soul or that spirit that makes people tick? And I swear to you, on a daily basis, we got somebody who works with me here in the room, Avery. There he is. He's one of our directors at 21 Grams and spends a lot of time with patients at advertising shoots, doing all kinds of really, really amazing stuff. And the stuff that his team and other people put together on a daily basis makes makes me teary. And so it's the kind of thing that changes patients' lives, that actually gets to know them, that understands, doctors are busy, they have families, they still have records that they need to get to in the evenings. It's not just the stuff that happens in the clinic. It's not just the patient, it's also the caregiver. It's a mother dealing with their child having seizures, making sure that everything is moved away so they don't hit anything if they have a seizure. It's like all these different things that comes into ultimately how we build the video, how we do the day in the life, how we actually approach an ad or whatever. So it's just constantly inspiring on a daily basis. And ultimately, it all just comes down to the patients. And that, I might have to do something mundane. I might have to make some photocopies. I might have to work in some stupid Excel spreadsheet all day long, but ultimately it's in the service of patients.
That's wonderful. Thank you all so much again. Can we give another round of applause? Feel like you guys are best friends now. And so just finally, do you have any last comments or thoughts that you like to offer before we close out today's session?
You guys already achieved the first step. You're here. So just keep on keeping on. I'm so excited to talk to you guys. This has been extremely, extremely inspiring to me. I hope it has been to you, and it gives you guys an idea of what else you can do with your very expensive degree.
She's our communications person.
No, just echoing what I said in the beginning, that so many of you have inspired me too. I wish all of you were sitting here. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Clap. That's fine. Thank you. Thank you again. I'm sorry I called your field unpopular. Yeah. So now we thank you again. We thank you so much for attending. We're glad that you all were able to join us today. This work of love, and we're glad that we were able to bring this to you all. Hopefully you learned a lot and you were able to gain something and picked up someone's number. If not, before you leave, get somebody's phone number, connect with them. And so now we'll have Dean, if you would like to come forward and give our closing remarks. Thank you so much.
Can you hear me? I would like these to be opening remarks, not closing remarks. I would like to imagine at the end of this day, you're going to be opening doors. You're going to be seeing a new perspective on your future, and you're energized to overcome obstacles that before today you didn't think you would be able to. It's hard to follow the youth, the vigor, the excitement of the last panel, but it's not. My age may be double their age, but it has not taken one iota away from my passion about what I do. I remember as a 13-year-old having the most magnificent biology teacher. I will tell you that this man, in his humility, his intelligence, his love of his profession, contributed in many ways to changing my life. And I will tell you now, whatever age I'm at, I still want to be as good as he was. I want to inspire as many people and as deeply as he inspired me. Two issues I'd like to emphasize today, and I have some written remarks, but I never stick to those. We are at a historic moment where the culture of public health is needed in all domains. I will tell you one profession that I am envious of, and that is nursing. Nurses have been able to reinvent themselves in leadership across organizations across the globe. We in public health have not been able to do adequately the same. The world we live in needs the culture of public health. So seeking domains outside of the traditional domains of public health is a necessity. And you may ask me, I am a physician, and I might tell you briefly about my personal story. What defines our culture? It's a staunch advocacy for common good and justice. We are innovative and imaginative. We use common sense and are frugal. We are the opposite of ego-driven, albeit we are proud and brave, but we are also humble. These are characteristics that define public health. But I want to tell you something else. You are assembled today because you have an affiliation and a belief in a public school of public health. Congratulations. I worked for 25 years as a physician and as a professor both of medicine and public health in a school that prided itself in being the most expensive school of medicine. I couldn't take it anymore. And I vouched to myself to belong to public systems that had within their mandate accessibility. I see some of our alums, and I won't embarrass them, but they knew this school when we were a fledgling school of public health. Today, we are the top public school of public health in the tri-state area. And if you looked at the entirety of the eastern coast of the United States, from Maine all the way down to Louisiana, we're only second to the University of North Carolina. You should be so proud. You should be so proud when you say, I graduated from a public school of public health that defines you in your choice and in the environment that you were nurtured in and the commitment that that system had towards you. Don't take it lightly, because today it pains me to think that there are some schools that charge $1,800 per credit hour to give a degree to students that are supposed to commit themselves to public service. It is against the grain of our profession. And it is against the grain of our commitment to justice and equity and diversity. So here I am amongst you, a member of your team, because we have a task to accomplish together, which is spreading that word, that there is a space to grow a generation of leaders within a public space that believes in common good and justice. That is my dream, my translation of who my biology teacher was and what he stood for when I was 13. I never let go of that dream, and his image is not just in my mind, it's in my heart. Think of that person, whomever it was, that inspired you to do good, and remember that that person will always be there for you, because they have instilled within you the energy to translate what you saw into what you will do. One of the questions today was, what is the challenge for public health in the future? And I will tell you, the challenge for public health in the future is stand up and fight. No applause. Silence. This is too serious to be applauded. We have learned a great deal through the COVID pandemic. We have learned a great deal of our own shortcomings. And in a consensus report that I was proud to be a co-author on, that was published in Nature Medicine with 382 authors representing 112 countries. These experts all agreed. They agreed on one thing, which was that we needed to be better at communicating, that we need to be better at being community-centered and community-focused, that we needed a whole society approach to public health, which is what we're talking about today, and we need a whole government approach to public health. Public health professionals of the future need to see the globality of their task, their challenge, and their mission. Thank you for being a landscape architect. Thank you. Thank you. Creating green spaces, a respect for the environment that we live in, cannot be a privilege for the rich or the empowered, but needs to be a duty for us to create a living environment that is conducive to health. It starts there. It starts from the moment of conception, where the worries that the mother has as she's carrying her baby translates genetically into the nuclear structure of that human being that he or she will live with for the rest of their lives. You see how important it is to have a good work-life balance for women, to give them maternity care, to fight for sexual and reproductive justice? to find equity to the most disempowered and the voiceless. This is not a sermon. This is science. And if we need to give you something to take with you today for the rest of your lives, is to know that the passion we have for justice is science-based. Very briefly, I think some of you may be a little bit anxious because I've taken a little longer than the time allocated to me. But I will tell you my personal history. I was a physician and I was specialized in neonatal intensive care. I worked in an intensive care unit, the farthest in medicine you could be from public health. And I was in Washington, D.C. at the old hospital at GW. Some of you may have heard that story. On a very hot day, D.C. gets infernally hot. In July, having been called to one delivery after the other, after the other, after the other, as a neonatologist, to resuscitate extremely premature babies, some of them not even viable, born to mothers who were victims to the crack cocaine epidemic, a war just as virulent and vicious as the wars we see today in the Ukraine or the Middle East, except it was silent. We intubated the babies if they were viable. We took care of them. We nurtured them. We grew them. And at the time that they were supposed to be going home, the homes were not ready for them. And we had a crisis. These mothers' lives had fallen apart. They were alone, young, inexperienced, sometimes ill, depressed, and without support. And when social services visited the homes, they found them not suitable to nurture a small baby. There was something called the border baby phenomenon in hospitals, where these babies were ready to go home, but there were no homes for them to go to. And we had to advertise in the Washington Post to bring in women who would volunteer to sit in rocking chairs to rock these babies. I looked around me and I said to myself, self, you're doing the best you can do, but this is useless. Why isn't anyone thinking of how to prevent this disaster from happening? Do we have to wait for something to break before we glue it together again? But I also realized that in my toolbox, I didn't have the tools to prevent the disaster. All I knew was to pick up the pieces. And that's where this doctor, this intensivist, moved from a medical career to public health. I maintained both careers because I was ashamed there was so much money and time that had been invested in training me as an intensive care specialist. I couldn't just say, oh, no, I don't want to do this anymore. So I put myself under the burden of maintaining a career in tertiary care while I got my degree in public health and gradually pursued an academic and practice career in public health. And my first NIH grant, believe it or not, was in a clinical trial where women were randomized, new mothers were randomized to an intervention that emphasized self-efficacy. Feeling like you were the train that could. And the outcomes were medical, like they would use healthcare better, the kids would be better immunized, they use the emergency room less. And lo and behold, I mean, I was so much on the null hypothesis, believe me. I thought, what lunatic at the NICHD gave me that grant? Anyway, it worked. It worked. And I learned from these mothers so much. And the thing that I learned most was the importance of pride. After the training they received, if they were the intervention arm, we had a graduation for them. Many of them had not graduated high school. They never had a graduation. They were never the balloons. They never wore the hats. They brought their mothers and their neighbors. And the energy of success propelled them forwards in their lives. And what I pray for you today, from my heart, my dear, please forgive me for calling you, but my dear children, what I pray for you today is that same energy of success will propel you to change our world, because we need you. I'm sorry my remarks were lengthy, but I'm hungry to spend time with my students. In the world of online education, I have little chance to see you. And this, for some of you, may be the first chance for you to come to this building. But the old team are here as well, some of our alums who I used to see on a daily basis in the hallway. And I feel hungry for that. So forgive me for taking more time than I have been allowed. Please also remember that my personal experience is translatable to all of you. Every one of you can live that story. And every one of you can take that mission forward. But also together, and that's why today is so important for you to network, because you see each other on the Zoom screen. That's different than seeing each other in person, touching each other, and I mean that metaphorically. So in conclusion, I would like to call back one of our alums that I knew as a student as well, Hannah Stewart Lathan. I was there the day she graduated and shook her hand, and she was our valedictorian. I see other graduates today that fill my heart with joy. But I'll call Hannah back. She's the director now of our Office of Experiential Learning and Career Service. She will give the final instructions to you for the remaining networking hour. With my sincere respect and my enthusiastic affection for you, please allow me to express my pride of who you are and what you have achieved so far, and my passion for what you are going to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dean. And thank you to all of our speakers today at Public Health Everywhere. And thank you to all of you for coming here and spending an entire day with us. I've heard throughout the day, some of you took a personal day from work even to be here. And I can't say how much that means. This is our first in-person event like this in years, and it won't be the last, thanks to you. So we look forward to seeing you again. It's been an absolute joy. I would just like to share my team's gratitude for, well, firstly, my gratitude for my team, and then our gratitude for our campus's Career Success Fellows, Karmen and Gada, who you met today, as well as the CUNY Law School. They have supported this idea, this crazy idea, since its inception, and also to our entire and incredible SPH community and staff who have worked alongside us today to ensure this event's success. So thank you to all of you as well. So this is the conclusion of our panels. And so we do invite you, if you'd like, in the spirit of what the dean shared with us, to stay, network. We will have a coffee reception. We are bringing in fresh coffee for all of you, and the room will be open until 4:30. So I look forward to meeting some more of you before we leave today. If you are an alumni or a student, please find me or Maya or our team to talk about how we could support you from career services or experiential learning. And for any potential students of the school, happy to talk with you about that as well. So thank you again and be well.
That's great.